welcome to Tripp Advisor. It is Friday. Happy Friday, everyone, which means it's time for another Film Friday movie review here at Tripp Advisor. Continuing on in our theme of love leading into Valentine's Day weekend, I'm really excited today because I get to share some thoughts about my most loved film from 2019, the film Ad Astra, which simply means to the stars. Ad Astra is a sci-fi movie set in the near future directed by James Gray and starring Brad Pitt, Tommy Lee Jones, Ruth Negga, and Donald Sutherland. Brad Pitt, the protagonist, plays Major Roy McBride, an experienced military man and the son of the famous space communications pioneer Clifford McBride, played by Tommy Lee Jones, who disappeared decades earlier during the Lima Project, a pioneering space voyage to Neptune for the purpose of seeking out and communicating with intelligent life. The film begins with a visually stunning scene of Roy working on a massive 80,000-foot-high international space antenna high above the Earth. During the scheduled maintenance shift, the antenna is hit with a mysterious power surge, which causes McBride and others to hurtle through space to the Earth. Shortly after, during a meeting with Space Command, aka Spacecom, Roy is informed that the source of the mysterious and lethal power surges is coming from an antimatter reaction from the source being Neptune's orbit. It is at this point that Spacecom reveals to Roy their belief that Clifford is in fact still alive, and he is recruited for a top-secret mission to travel to Mars, the last manned station in the galaxy, and to attempt to make contact with his father in an attempt to stop the power surges which, if left unchecked, pose a real threat to all life on Earth. Roy agrees and begins his mission, accompanied by his father's former associate Colonel Pruitt, played by Donald Sutherland, which begins with a covert commercial flight to the moon, followed by the journey to Mars, and then finally, following a series of internal and external conflicts, carries on into deep space towards Neptune and a reunion with his long-lost father. I recall my first viewing of Ad Astra was with my wife as we celebrated our anniversary. I really didn't know much about the film going in, other than the fact that it was directed by James Gray, a director whose previous film, The Lost City of Zed, I very much enjoyed. Check that one out too if you haven't seen it yet. And of course, my wife didn't need any arm twisting to go see any movie starring Brad Pitt, so off we went. A half dozen viewings later, and this film has become a personal favorite. It's my favorite film of 2019, and it is one of my favorite science fiction films ever made. Of course, when it comes to films, and any form of art for that matter, personal tastes are always subjective. And certainly this film will not be for everyone. I want to let you know that right out of the gate. I was reminded this, my wife and I, in our first viewing in the theater, when as the credits were rolling, and I was processing just how deeply this film affected me personally, a gentleman from a few rows over shouted out, and I quote, "That was the most melodramatic piece of shit I've ever seen. I want my money back." To which I turned to my wife, and I immediately whispered to her, clearly this guy has some daddy issues. The reality is that yes, there are some melodramatic moments throughout this film, and if you are someone who gets easily off-put or annoyed by science fiction movies that are sometimes more fiction than science, this could be a frustrating movie for you. But at its core, Ad Astra is a visually stunning and powerfully moving story of a son's journey across the galaxy, which is actually more fundamentally a journey of inner healing and reconciliation, a journey of the heart, as I want to call it today. Without a doubt, Brad Pitt is one of the most gifted and popular actors in the industry today. From his early roles in the 90s films A River Runs Through It and Legends of the Fall, to his big, brash, iconic roles as the young Detective Mills in Seven, the soap-selling, bare-knuckle fighting Tyler Durden in Fight Club, and as Mickey O'Neill, the thick, pikey, accent-wielding gypsy fighter in Snatch.
Now, there is a problem with pikeys or gypsies.
What are you doing, Potter? Get out the way back.
You can't really understand much of what is being said.
You tell me. Come about the counter.
Mr. O'Neill.
Fuck, man. Call me Mickey.
It's not Irish. It's not English.
How are you?
Fair, the Welshman can't just for the horses, you know that.
It's just pikey.
And of course, his recent Oscar-winning performance in the other film he starred in 2019, Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. There are so many great, iconic performances of his to pick from, but his performance in Ad Astra is my personal favorite. Many other actors would have gone for too much in this performance, but Pitt is rightfully reserved in his portrayal of Roy McBride. The film is not loaded with dialogue, nor is it full of fast paced action. In fact, a good chunk of the dialogue is through voiceover, with the viewers listening to the interior world of Roy. Well, voiceover often doesn't work for me as it can come across as insulting to the audience by being overly expository. It works beautifully in Ad Astra with the wonderful and restrained non-verbal acting by Brad Pitt. Clearly, Roy is a man deeply wounded from the abandonment of his father, a man who has thrust himself into his work as a means of numbing and distracting him from his pain and emptiness. And yet, from the outset of the film, we get a glimpse that Roy is already beginning to unravel.
As a reminder, please perform any safety.
I always wanted to become an astronaut. For the future of mankind and all. At least that's what I always told myself. I see myself from the outside. Smile, present a side.
The beauty of this film is that through James Gray's direction, Brad Pitt's performance, and Hoyt van Hoytema's phenomenal cinematography, we, the viewers, get to accompany Roy not simply on an epic journey across the galaxy, but more fundamentally on what we might call the journey of the heart, from anger, apathy, and resentment to self-awareness, vulnerability, empathy, and above all, love. Hoyt van Hoytema, director of cinematography whose previous works include collaborations with Christopher Nolan on the visually stunning Interstellar, Dunkirk, and Tenet, has provided viewers with both an epic, intimate, and immersive viewing experience through the use of camera work and the use of color in this film. In today's world of cinema, in which most big-budget action and sci-fi films are littered with CGI effects, Van Hoytema has chosen to use as little CGI as possible, smartly opting to shoot the majority of the film using real film. As Hoytema has stated about this choice, doing it all in CGI would have been boring, and usually doesn't look convincing enough in a film that is shot on real film. We wanted to maintain the quality, feel, and texture. The result is a film full of natural texture, dynamism, and enhanced realism. What I find most fascinating about the cinematography of Ad Astra is the colors used by Van Hoytema and Gray to enhance the plot and mood on Roy's journey across the galaxy. At the beginning of the film, in the opening shot, we see the title of the film, Ad Astra, on screen in red, the first color of the rainbow, followed by a lens flare from the sun in which we get to see the progression of all the colors of the rainbow across the screen, blending into a first shot of Roy in his astronaut suit. This is a subtle and effective foreshadowing of the emotional journey of the heart Roy will embark on throughout the film, with the colors, specific colors of yellow, red, and blue, seemingly intentionally used by Gray and Van Hoytema throughout the film to parallel and enhance Roy's journey of the heart for us, the viewers. The early scenes in the film involving Roy and his wife Eve, played by Liv Tyler, have a distinctly soft yellow texture, seemingly meant to signify Roy's loving relationships both with Eve and later on in the film with his father Clifford. Throughout the film, whenever there are scenes involving Eve or Clifford, we see the use of this yellow color on screen. Not surprisingly, as the setting shifts from Earth to Mars, the red planet, we see a mixture of orange and red colors in the shots. Mars is named after the Roman god of war, and it is during the middle third of the film, while on Mars, where both Roy's internal and external struggles are amplified, and he literally has to fight to keep moving forward on his journey across the galaxy, as well as move forward on his journey of the heart. When we finally reach Neptune in the final third of the film, the shots are full of blue, depicting the coldness of his father's obsession to encounter intelligent life, as well as his coldness and disdain towards his family as a result. And yet, in some of the scenes between Roy and Clifford, yellow is used again, signifying their relationship and Roy's enduring love for his father, in spite of his coldness. The yellow, however, gives way to blue as Clifford's coldness overrides Roy's love and desire for reconciliation. What struck me most about Ad Astra since my first viewing, and what continues to linger after every time I rewatch the film, is the way it really connects with the broader meta-narrative of the human life and journey we all share, and also the philosophical and theological themes that sort of really undergird this film. From a theological point of view, Roy's father Clifford can symbolize sort of a cold and distant God who randomly and arbitrarily interacts with the world only to cause harm. In one of my favorite scenes of the film, Roy and his father literally wrestle in orbit around Neptune until Roy finally untethers himself from his father, letting him go. It is only as Roy lets go of the dark side of himself, reflected in his father, that he is able to fully heal. And what has been true in my experience and countless others is that letting go of toxic pictures of God as cold, distant, and disconnected from creation is a prerequisite for living and loving well. Of course, the case can be made that the overarching theological and philosophical message of Ad Astra is that there is no God, echoed in Roy's statement to his father near the end of the film, "Now we know, we're all we've got."
You can't fail. You can't let me fail, Roy.
Dad, you haven't. Now we know. We're all we've got.
However, for me personally, the film is not propagating a message of atheism, but rather it's an indictment of focusing on what is beyond and out of reach at the expense of loving those around us in the here and now. Essentially, Ad Astra values immanence over transcendence, and that's a message that I can get behind. In life and faith communities, the emphasis can often be on focusing on the divine as transcendent and being sort of disconnected from the world. Well, in essence, it is receiving and extending indiscriminate love moment by moment to those around us that leads to personal and communal wholeness. Just as Roy's journey involved him acknowledging and wrestling with his own wounds from his childhood, so too are each and every one of us on similar journeys. And while no two journeys are exactly alike, the journey towards wholeness and a growing capacity to live and love well really does encapsulate this journey. In his book entitled The Journey of the Heart, John Welwood writes these words: "Awareness born of love is the only force that can bring healing and renewal. Out of our love for another person, we become more willing to let our old identities wither and fall away, and enter a dark night of the soul, so that we may stand naked once more in the presence of the great mystery that lies at the core of our being. This is how love ripens us, by warming us from within, inspiring us to break out of our shell, and lighting our way through the dark passage to new birth." This journey of the heart, born of love and able to break us free from our self-imposed prisons of anger, shame, apathy, and workaholism, is not only Roy's journey, but in a sense, it is all of our journeys. It is a journey that requires self-awareness, courage, vulnerability, forgiveness, and above all, a commitment to live and love well. Roy's journey of the heart is bookended very powerfully in Ad Astra. At the beginning of the film, during one of his mandatory psychological check-ins, Roy is slightly out of focus on screen. His mannerisms are stoic and self-absorbed. In a scene where Eve returns home, he turns to her, and we expect, as we watch the film that the camera will bring her into focus, but she too is blurry and remains out of focus. This really underscores the reality that Roy's life and the relationships most meaningful to him are in fact out of focus as the film begins. However, as the film concludes in what is one of my all-time favorite movie endings, Roy is now clearly in focus as he gives a similar psych evaluation. His journey across the galaxy and back has been both a sort of dark night of the soul, but it's also illuminated his way through the dark to new birth. He has a renewed sense of clarity about what is truly essential and a newfound determination to live and to love well. And that's a message that can and should resonate with all of us. Well, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining me here at TripAdvisor on another Film Friday. I do hope if you watch Ad Astra you will enjoy it, or if you've seen it, maybe this has helped you glean some new depths and new realities to this wonderful masterpiece by James Gray. Thank you as always for joining me, and as always you're welcome to like, share, subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to seeing you next Friday for another Film Friday. But between now and then, whatever you decide to watch this weekend, have a wonderful Valentine's Day weekend and enjoy your time at the movies.